basically, I just feel that we are like sometimes, juggling a patient to one side to the other. And, but I think that, in the background of that is the shortage of staff, which is for me the biggest problem.
If you are thinking about getting into medicine, or maybe you are in medicine and you're like, hey, is medicine really worth it? Is being a doctor really worth it? Shall I be moving on? Then listen to this episode. We feature Dr. Mariane Melo, who has a really diverse career. She's currently working in the NHS in the UK, but she originated from Brazil. As an entrepreneur, as a clinician, she gives us some really valuable insights as to how she leveraged her being a doctor in medicine to her benefit, and why she's still really passionate about continuing as a clinician despite all the challenges she's faced. So if any of that resonates, this is something you don't want to miss. And don't forget, before you listen, subscribe if you're enjoying this. I'm recording this now and it's our year's anniversary. So if you listen to a few episodes and you like what you hear, subscribe. And if you're not in our community list, why not? In our community list, we share our opportunities and you hear more from me and stuff that you won't see anywhere else. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Let's face it, burnout amongst doctors is sky high, and we're actively seeking other ways to make the most of our transferable skills beyond the usual career pathways. Welcome to Disrupting Doctors' Careers. I'm your host, Dr. Bubbers-Jones, and I'm on a mission to connect 1 million doctors across the world with the best in diverse career opportunities.
Welcome to Disrupting Doctors' Careers. I'm your host, Dr. Bubbers-Jones, and today we're going to talk about, is being a doctor worth it? Very simple question, and apparently that's what a lot of people are Googling now, and so we talk about it. That's what we do. And to have that discussion is none other than Dr. Mariane Melo, who has an extremely diverse career. She is a doctor, obviously. She is a clinical entrepreneur. She is a chief medical officer of Dem DX, and she'll tell us more about that. She is originally from Brazil and she has traveled the world. She is a clinical doctor, so she's actually still practicing somehow with that, with all of those things she's doing. And she's got a whole wealth of information and insights to really tackle this question. So if you are someone who is wondering whether A, to go into medicine, or B, to leave medicine, or C, you've just got no idea, then listen to this episode. So welcome, Mariane. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here in your podcast.
Well, it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure. So, let's just start with your background as to why we were really excited about getting you on today. So tell me, obviously you studied medicine and then you moved here. And then you're diverse. When did you start diversifying your career and why?
Right. Yes, I don't actually know how I ended up in here, to be honest. It was nothing like planned, but I always had like a big interest in science, like even when I was younger. So my dream, I always told people that I would be a scientist. And then later on I realized that I'm a very people person. I love talking to people and I love hearing people's stories and stuff. So I thought that medicine would be the great combination for both things together. But so then when I entered medicine, I was still heavily involved with research. I had like so many side projects in so many different things.
Yeah.
And because of that, I got a scholarship to do a exchange year in the UK, in London, in 2015. That exchange year became 2 years, and then I fell in love with the NHS, and because at that point I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a public health system that really works.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there because that's really interesting. Because I have not heard those words for a while. I fell in love with the NHS. So your insight's really, really useful here. So how does the NHS compare with the public health system in Brazil?
Yes, so that's very interesting because we do have an NHS equivalent in Brazil that's called SUS, which was inspired by the NHS. Well, when was this created? I think in the 80s, 70s, 80s in Brazil. And the idea is that it's supposed to be exactly the same as the NHS. It's universal free healthcare for everyone. But of course, if you have problems here in the UK that has a lot more money and is a smaller country, imagine how ambitious is to develop a system like the NHS for a country like Brazil. That's a continent.
It's massive.
So even though I'm very happy that we do have a healthcare system in Brazil that is very underfunded. In Brazil, if you are middle class or if you have a job, a good job, good enough job, you're going to pay for healthcare insurance and you're going to use the private sector.
Yeah.
Even though everyone is allowed to use, is a universal public healthcare system. Mm-hmm. But is it still amazing? I mean, I think is it still amazing that a country like Brazil have a public healthcare system? It's just, it's just, of course, it has its problems. It's very difficult to access, the facilities is not as good as what we have here in the UK. That's why, when I saw the difference and I saw, what the NHS did for people, I was just like, oh, yeah, this is amazing. I want to work in there.
Awesome. I mean, so how easy or difficult was it to register with the General Medical Council here and get your degrees recognised? I know that can be a huge faff for a lot of international medical graduates. What was that like for you?
So what happened was I did my 2 years exchange here. I studied King's College and University of East London as well. Then I went back to Brazil and then I did my equivalent of the foundation training in there. So when I came back to the UK, I already came back to work at Dem DX. So I wasn't really in a hurry to validate it, to transfer my registration to the GMC. So it took a really, really, really long time, especially because I would say that even if you are in a hurry, it would take at least a year or longer. But yeah, I think I did it in 2 years time while I was completely focused on the MDX. But basically the process is that you need to have a good level of English, a very good level of English.
Yeah.
Then you do the first exam that's called PLAB 1.
PLAB, yeah.
Which is like a multiple choice exam. Not difficult, but you really need to know, the answer for the questions, because I think you have 40 seconds to answer each question, something like that.
So time it now. Oh my God.
Yeah, no. I mean, in the end, if you want to finish the exam, you have around 40 to 50. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I thought you literally had 40 seconds to do that. If you don't know it, that's
it. But then you will never finish it.
Yeah.
So so you need to know the answers, otherwise you only have time to read the question and answer that.
So I mean, I'd love to to jump in, because we've got so much to talk about, and I think we actually are planning to talk about international medical graduates, what they go through, and also alternative careers in actually an upcoming episode. But I really want to spend this time focusing also on just understanding how you got into business as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Because one of the amazing things that you've done, even as an NHS clinical entrepreneur, is being named the Forbes 30 under 30, which is an amazing achievement. So can you tell us a little bit more about, how did you become an entrepreneur, what that took?
Yes. during my medical school, as I was involved in several different projects,
Mm-hmm.
I started joining some hackathons. So
Okay.
I did several hackathons around like the world. Actually, it was like my hobby. And then in hackathons, you work with a multidisciplinary team, with developers, with business people. And then I realized that actually I'm very creative and I love finding solutions for problems that they give me in different hackathons. And that's really changed my mindset in terms of like, if you're doing medicine, you either have to be a doctor or or a proper researcher, that you can actually create solutions, that are e- easily acceptable for people, either than like working on a development of a drug that would take you a lifetime to actually put that into a market.
Mm-hmm.
So those hackathons really, they taught me that there was another path. And then I started looking and also interacting with people that was already in the innovation area in healthcare. And I don't know if it was out of luck. In one of these events, I met Lauren Gresser, that is the founder of Dem DX. It was in 2016. At that point, she just had the idea of the MDX. She was starting it, and she wanted people to join her. So I joined her, and then I got like the feeling of what you need to do to actually develop an innovation, or to develop something that can help. It's still in healthcare, but can impact people's lives as well in a different way. And I think that, I think that was it. Like it was, of course, I was I was already looking for other things that are different. I was not like completely focused in
Mm-hmm.
medicine, but it was very early on, even before I finished medicine, that I got into entrepreneurship, and I thought it was the right thing
Right.
for
So, I
me
mean,
to do.
how do they view entrepreneurship in Brazil compared to how they view it here? Is it embedded, or is it seen as like a great thing to do, an accolade? Because obviously, historically, until very recently, it's still the case in many ways. Being a doctor and being an entrepreneur are not mutually exclusive most of the time, right? So, especially in the public sector
Yes.
environment. So tell me a little bit more about how they see that in Brazil. Love to find out that.
Well, at that point, when I was doing these hackathons and when I came back from London and with all the different ideas, my colleagues really thought I was crazy. They were just like, what are you doing? Like, this is so random. Like, can you just focus in being a doctor? Like that's already enough. I think that at that time I was a bit misunderstood. But I think that, you need more people to inspire other people to do things differently. And in my university in Brazil, it was me and another guy that was like following this different path. And in the end of when I finished F2, they created a entrepreneurship and innovation subject at my university that was never done before. And several people joined it. So I think that today it would be is a lot more acceptable. I think, especially because, after COVID, that there was so many like digital innovations and all the innovations that were developed by doctors or healthcare professionals that are like, that you would not expect that would be doing something different. I think now people are starting to see this new path as a recognizable
Mm-hmm.
path. But I would say that 5 to 10 years ago, that would be like completely crazy.
Great. No, that's really useful to understand. Just, I mean, I think it's actually quite similar across the world. That becoming an entrepreneur as a doctor isn't something that's like a natural progression unless you really jump into it. So I'd love to hear more about. I mean, like the title of this episode is being a doctor really worth it? And throughout all of this work that you have done, you've maintained your clinical practice. So, can you tell me how your experience as a doctor has influenced like what you've done in that sense? Like, could you have done all this stuff without becoming a doctor? And how have you used it to leverage all these opportunities that you clearly made a lot out of? Lots of questions in that.
Yes, I definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, let me see if I'm gonna answer all, then otherwise you
Yeah, so
interrupt
I
me
was
and
literally just
ask
thinking
me
out loud
again.
there. Just pick one of those questions and feel free to tackle it.
Well, I think that if I wasn't a doctor, I would not have done anything that I did today. So I believe that you do need the technical knowledge to develop things that will cause any impact in the world. So, well, it doesn't need to. You need at least one person in the team that understands the system, understands the problems, understands the different challenges that not only patients but healthcare professionals, managers, they face every single day, and there is no a better way to know that than being part of the system. So definitely, if you wanted to develop like innovations for healthcare, you need to be a healthcare professional. You need to be integrated into the system.
I mean, I was going to say, I completely agree with that. And this is why, I mean, I've been doing Medic Footprints for nearly 10 years, and I've continued as a doctor. A lot of that like full-time both jobs and being really challenging. But yeah, just continuing to practice, especially with the specialty I'm in, which is occupational health, has really helped to, again, keep your feet on the ground at the end of the day. Because what we do see,
Exactly.
especially once you go into leadership positions or commercial roles, you lose touch with the reality of what's going on the ground. And then your focus does change, because it's so easy to be drawn into different directions, especially when it comes to business, product, because there are so many things, especially as an entrepreneur, especially in an early stage business, when you are juggling a lot of hats, right? And so actually, keeping your hand in is actually something I see a lot of doctors do when they are either running companies or in companies. They all seem to be doing a little bit of locum here or there. Some seem to be doing both. Again, burnout city, because I went there as well. But yeah, I'd love to know how do you juggle both of those?
Oh, well, that's very hard, actually. I'm not gonna lie. And what happened was I left clinical practice for a bit to focus on Dem DX, because at that point we were developing the product. I was developing myself, as an entrepreneur, because I don't have any business, formal business, knowledge or a certificate. So and that is the thing about being an entrepreneur. You think that you every day you're doing something new that you have no idea if you're doing it right or wrong. So for me, it would be impossible.
Sorry, I completely identify with that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, every day you say like, what am I doing? Like, I have no idea if this is actually right or wrong.
Yeah.
Well, luckily you have a lot of people to advise you along the way. Otherwise, it would be a big problem. But you always know 100% sure, because you, as a doctor, we don't have experiences. Normally people, don't have like a corporate experience or a commercial experience before. We don't have this education as part of the medical degree. So I didn't work as a doctor for 2 years and a half. I fully focused on Dem DX and getting those skills that I needed to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think it would be possible for me to do that at the same time as being a doctor. But then last year, I realized that we were already in a better position. We hired more people. And even though it was very difficult for me to take this decision, I said that no, I want to go part-time with Dem DX, and I want to go back to clinical practice, because I think I had left it for for too long already, and it would be difficult for me to come back. And
what was it like going back after 2.5 years? Because I haven't been out of clinical practice for longer than actually this is my longest time out of clinical practice. So I was pregnant last year, had a baby in October, so from September until now I haven't gone back to actual practice, but will do in the next month or so. And that's been the longest I've been off. Good. But like, I'd love to hear more about you, like, because even now I'm like, I'm a little bit rusty, so 2.5 years. Exactly. Can't even imagine.
it wasn't easy, and I delayed it so many times because I would be like, okay, no, I need to study a little bit more. I was never ready to go back because exactly you lose your
Yeah,
confidence,
confidence.
and uh, it's all about the confidence. The knowledge comes back quite quickly as soon as you start
Yeah.
it again. But the confidence is something that that it would take a little bit of time, and you would need to work on yourself. So I started very slowly. I started getting like a few locum shifts, and getting my confidence back. But then I realized that for me to actually fully go back as a locum wasn't ideal, especially because I was still reworking my confidence again. So then I decided to go and get a proper, a contract with the NHS. So I would do that regularly. And I also have, the support from the seniors and the consultants that you have when you are in the
I
NHS.
think that's incredible.
So
yeah. So your ophthalmology, is that correct?
No. Well, my research, and that's the thing, and which I think I'm very lucky.
So
I work
you're
in
emergency
with
medicine
projects
and you're
in
doing
different
research
parts.
in ophthalmology. Incredible. Look at that.
Yeah,
Look at
exactly.
that.
So yeah, and that's the thing about technology, right? You can work with different specialties, and
Absolutely.
they all have like similar challenges.
Absolutely.
But I came back. Yeah, I came back to. Yeah, I work now as a clinical fellow at Homerton A&E. I do well. It's part time. It's 50% of full time. Which sometimes it goes, weekends, nights, and evenings. But I think it was great. It was very good. It was a great opportunity for me to go back into medicine, and again, to ground you into reality and understand, all the problems that and challenges that the system is facing. And when I came back this time, then before I was like, the NHS is amazing. Now I still think that the NHS is amazing, but there are so many problems and so many challenges that need to be fixed. So
what would you say
yeah,
is the biggest coming Dr. Entrepreneur Mariane Melo? What would you say is the biggest problem that needs fixing in the NHS today?
oh, the biggest problem, I would say that is access to care. Which involves so many different problems in one big problem. What I see is that we have a big shortage of doctors and healthcare professionals, and in every single area of the NHS. And I just feel that sometimes, especially in the A&E, I see so many patients that they are in the A&E because they couldn't access a GP, or they couldn't access they've been waiting for referral for so long, or like so basically I just feel that we are like sometimes juggling a patient to one side to the other, and but I think that in the background of that is is the shortage
And
of staff,
how, as an
which is
entrepreneur,
for me the
yeah,
biggest
no, I
problem.
totally get it. And personally, I struggle to access the NHS as a doctor. That's a real challenge. And as an entrepreneur, because as entrepreneurs, we see problems. We want to really understand that problem as deeply as we can to then identify and explore the best kind of solution for it. Can you think of any solutions that you think would address access to healthcare?
Well, yeah, we're trying to address that with Dem DX. So basically, I think that we need to change the way that the system works. The traditional way that we know as how we should access health, it's not feasible anymore. The demand is too high, and it's basically the system can cope with it. So we need to create systems that patients can themselves, we need to create systems that patients knows about health. They know about when they need to find, to look for health. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Let me start it again. I think that we need to create systems where patients have the knowledge to self-treat themselves when it's possible. And we also need to create other ways that they can access health that doesn't mean like seeing a doctor, for example. So what we are trying to do at Dem DX is, as part of the NHS long-term plan, is that the multidisciplinary team of healthcare professionals, so nurses, physicians, associates, and other healthcare professions, they will have a bigger responsibility at accessing and assessing and treating patients. So we are developing tools that can help those healthcare professionals to identify the patients that they can view themselves and help them with their clinical decisions. So the patient is still, they will have like quality assessment from someone that's qualified, and they still have the interaction with the healthcare with someone that they can talk and make as many questions as they want. And they will also be able to recognize when those patients need someone else to access them as well. So, we are trying to address this problem by, supporting this new workforce, this new frontline of health today with technology. So that is one way.
That is one way. I mean, that's really really interesting. And you also mentioned shortfall of healthcare professionals and doctors. This whole podcast is about doctors looking to diversify, changing careers. Would you say? I mean, I recently read that they're looking to you can do like a 3-year medicine degree now. There are hospitals, I think that they're pushing medical training onto the responsibility of hospitals rather than universities, again, making it more of a vocational degree rather than a university-led degree. And obviously this all points to increasing the workforce of doctors. I always say, if you haven't turned the tap off, then you're throwing a lot of money in the bin. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because, a lot of doctors, because they haven't changed the system to improve it. So do you feel that shortening our medical degree and cutting corners is the way I personally see it is an effective way of addressing that workforce shortage?
I don't think so.
That's a very loaded question, but feel free to completely disagree with me.
I don't think so. No. Yeah, I just feel that, the medical degree is basically teaching you the alphabet for you to write,
Nice analogy.
to learn how to read and write. And that's it. Yes. So even though like when we are, studying medicine, we feel like, oh my gosh, why am I learning like, I don't know, physiology, or like, why am I learning this on that? I think that is the main difference, is that you understand, you understand what is the mechanism behind like disease and treatment, and, and then you can understand and predict what is going to happen with that patient, or you can design innovations to address different problems. I think people need we need a technical background.
Yeah.
So I don't think cutting corners to make to graduate more doctors quicker is the solution. But I think there are spaces for other healthcare professionals as well, so that you have a shorter degrees, and you just need to reevaluate the system and redesign the pathways and see what is appropriate to be sent to the healthcare professional, what needs to be sent, do we need to be seen by a doctor, and if everyone works as a team, then it's okay. But I don't think that is the solution.
I'd love to hear more about, you're working you're straddling, so you're working in the NHS, you're working as an entrepreneur and developing a really amazing product. Can you tell me which of these roles, I know you're doing other things, but which of these roles do you feel like you have more influence as to kind of solving the challenges that the NHS has? Which of these roles do you feel like you have a bit more wager in doing that?
Well, that is a good question. Um, I feel that well, as a doctor, I have the influence of the direct impact of helping patients every day, and especially those cases that I told you, that I said before, that I sometimes feel the patients are going from one place to the other place. I make sure that if I see them, I do everything that I can do to to give what they need at that point. So I have a direct impact in there, but I don't think I have, as a doctor, I have influence in the system, or how things works, or like how to improve pathways. I don't think we do have that voice.
Why is that?
I'm sure that
Why
there
is
are
that?
other ways, because, well, that's true and not true. I'm sure that there are ways that you, as a doctor, you can still be part of projects that can improve systems and services as part of quality improvement projects and etc. But I just feel that we are so busy, and it's again, it's the problem again of the shortage of doctors and healthcare professionals. You're always so busy. You always have so much to do that you don't actually have time, and to think about things, or to talk with someone about, like, maybe like suggesting something new. So I think that it's difficult. Yeah, I think it's very difficult to influence as a doctor, and I think it's easier to influence the system as an entrepreneur,
Absolutely.
which is also not a very easy
No,
task.
I want to completely echo what you said, and it's something that I've seen again and again, personal experience with doctors I've worked with doctors I've seen as entrepreneurs. As you quite rightly said, when you are in the system and you're working in the system, you are used as service provision to do what you were trained for, which is absolutely fine. But
Yes.
you also do work in a silo, like especially in hospitals where you're working in a very specific department doing very specific things, right? And you don't really get to see or experience
Yes.
the bigger picture. And as doctors, we're not also not nurtured to become leaders nearly enough. And so, there aren't that many doctors I know, or any actually no, there's a few doctors I know who actually end up working in a senior leader. When I say senior leadership position, I'm talking like chief exec of trusts, right? And that's just how things are. But as you quite rightly described, I know so many different clinical entrepreneurs, doctor entrepreneurs, who are developing products, processes, but doing it from outside of the NHS, and then either selling products or providing services that the NHS will procure, and making an impact that way. But, as a result of that, you can understand why so many doctors who are working within the NHS doing their QI projects and seeing all these problems and saying, I've got a solution for this, I've got great ideas, and that's not being taken up. You can understand their frustration and how they end up then saying, well, if my doctor friend can do it from the outside the NHS, well, maybe that's the better pathway for me. If I really want to make a change, if I really want to make a difference, if I really want to make an impact beyond the one-to-one patients. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the one-to-one, and that's important, but it's also about the bigger picture and how we can help a larger society. So yeah, I think that's something I completely agree with personally, and something that I've seen it again and again.
Yes.
So yeah, but just moving forward, our main last topic is like, with everything we've discussed today, you've already indicated that you think studying medicine is worth it, considering all the broad range of interests that you have. But for doctors who are, like, for example, actually, I was on LinkedIn recently, and there is a medical student. Actually, no, is she even a medical student? I'm not sure. No, she didn't even get that far. Right, so I've already told you the end of the story. But there is a woman, a lady, who hasn't got into medical school as yet, but was on that journey and has set up her own podcast. And she was basically interviewing a lot of people about becoming a doctor, health tech innovation, and then came to a point where it was like, actually, she announced recently that she decided that she wasn't going to pursue medicine. And I asked the question, why have you chosen? Because it's great to see. I love it when I see say young people, but like people that are interested in studying medicine, because actually it is a great foundation for so many things, as we've illustrated in this podcast. But the fact that she decided not to pursue it, I was just really curious. And I think like she recognized about, you know, actually a lot, how it could significantly impact her lifestyle. But also, you know, the downsides that a lot of doctors are facing now, and also recognizing there are other ways that she can make a significant impact in healthcare beyond being, you don't have to be a doctor to do that. And actually, one of my babysitters also is going to become a doctor, you know, is looking to become a pediatrician, did some shadowing, and she was like, nah. So like, what would you advise to up and coming doctors or potential doctors who are like, hey, is this really worth it? Should I be looking at something else?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think that, well, medicine is a very big commitment,
It's a huge
right?
commitment,
So
yeah.
it's a huge commitment. Yes, it's a life commitment. It's a big financial commitment most of the times. So I yeah, I think it depends on what you want and like what is your expectations in life. So I would say that like probably in the past, like, you know, studying medicine and being a doctor was something that would financially be worth it. You knew that you were always going to, you would have like a good job and a good salary, which is not true anymore, right? So I think that if you really, I mean, it depends on the everyone's personality and dreams, right? So if you really like, you know, medicine, if you're really interested in health and you know, and in science as well, like me, for example, but in this way, I think it's definitely worth it. I think the medicine is like, even though we are not like in a good place right now, it is still, it gives you, it's such a privilege to be a doctor. So if you think about it, it's like it's one profession that you can really, you can be grounded, you can understand other people's reality, you can be like in the intimacy of, like, you know, of your community. There is no other profession that gives you that. It's like an understanding of the world. You're outside your bubble all the time. But then at the same time, if you're doing it because you like the title, or because you think that, you know, that will bring you like a big financial return, so
I don't
then
know anyone
definitely
that went
not.
into
There are
medicine for
other things.
money. I literally
Yeah,
know nobody.
yeah,
If they
yeah,
did, they left pretty quickly. They realized that it
yeah.
wasn't connected to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then you can do other courses. You can do a business degree, and then I don't know, and then specialize in healthcare, like in a different way. But you're never gonna have the understanding of actually what is health and care about. You know, what does it entitles, what does it involves. If you're not a doctor or other healthcare professional as well. So, you know, like nurses experience the same, or there are so many other healthcare professionals, you know, all the degrees that would give you like a similar experience as well. Uh, but medicine also puts you in a position that you, like me, that even though you know you are a doctor, and you need to be a doctor, you can work, you know, in public health, you can work in research, you can work, you know, in developing of, you know, new drugs and medicines, which is very broad. You don't need to be a doctor, but you need to be at least committed to go through the whole path and experience that, so then you can move into other areas and it will make sense. Otherwise, then yeah, you study other degree. It's too much
Yeah.
commitment for something that you don't want to do.
No, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
It's been a riveting conversation.
Thank
And
you.
I mean, just again, congratulations for everything that you have achieved, you know, transatlantic as well. It's really, really impressive. And I can't wait to see what you do next. And for those people who want to find out more about you or even connect with you, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. It's Dr. Mariane Melo. I'm not very active in social media, but whoever
Can't
want
imagine
to,
you have time.
follow me on my Instagram as well. It's Melo Mariane, but it's basically my personal Instagram. So I think LinkedIn would be the best place if anyone wants to talk to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mariane.
Thank you.